बोलिए सतगुरु महाराज की जय, सच्चे दरबार की जय. Thank you everyone for connecting with us today for this spiritual discourse. Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind in the present moment. A quote by Buddha. Many philosophical and religious traditions, scriptures teach that happiness is found by living in the present moment. Harvard psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert say that this statement is true. They created an app where they contacted 2,250 volunteers and they connected with them throughout regular intervals, and at each moment asked them whether they were happy, what it is that they were doing, and whether they were thinking about what they were doing at that moment or thinking about something else. They concluded in their study that on average, humans spend 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing in the moment. From the moment we open our eyes, as we lie in our beds, we think about the entire day and the things that we need to get accomplished. We go from brushing our teeth to taking showers, thinking about things that we need to say and do during the day. And we go through our entire day like this, always thinking about what's coming next or what needs to be done next. We go through our entire day without living and experiencing it fully. Killingsworth said, a human mind is a wandering mind, and a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. Eckhart Tolle also says that most humans almost never live fully in the present because unconsciously they believe that the next moment is more important than the one they are in now. But then he says your whole life goes by because it is never not now. I'm sure we've all had some experience of this in our lives. When we're in the middle of a conversation and we're more focused on what our response is going to be rather than listening to the person in front of us. Or when we set out on a trip and just as we set out, we want to be at our destination already. Our focus, our thoughts are already towards what we're going to do when we get to our destination. Killingsworth said that the study revealed that our mental lives are pervaded to a large degree by the non-present. And I think technology has made this damage worse. We do everything surrounded by our devices. We are engulfed in it. We're trapped in our devices. We eat our meals and scroll through social media. We have important conversations while we're driving. Or we watch TV while we're playing a board game with our children. A mother who sits on the breakfast table, scrolls through her social media as she's having her breakfast. But now her child has just spilled his cereal all over the table. So she is distracted from her distraction. This, sadly, brothers and sisters, is the reality of our lives today. We live in a world of distractions. At the very least, they keep us disconnected from our natural environment. And at its worst, they cause sleep disturbances, health issues, and symptoms of depression. It is becoming harder and harder to be present. We live in FOMO, the fear of missing out. We engage ourselves in too many things at one time that we're not able to give anything our 100%. Being present means being fully conscious of the moment and free from internal dialogue. But the truth is, we live more in our minds than in our moments. And this is the leading cause of the increase of mental health problems and mental illnesses. Dr. Mark Halperin, an Ayurvedic practitioner, says that the origination of mental illnesses is due to a lack of clarity within the mind. Classically, Ayurveda explains that there are three reasons, three causes for these mental illnesses. The first being parinama, which is decay over time and motion. These are through the aging process, the illnesses that start to set in. The second is pragya aprad, meaning intellectual crime. This is when we knowingly do something wrong. When we knowingly make unhealthy choices. When we stay up too late. When we harm ourselves or others, like cutting and anorexia, all of these fall in this category. The third is Atma Indriya Yatha Samyoga, meaning the misuse of senses. And Charak explains that this can be done in three different ways, in three different categories. One being the insufficient use of the senses. Two is the overuse of senses. And three is the wrong use of senses. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the relationship between the senses and the mind is symbolized with 5 horses and a chariot, where a charioteer holds the reins of these horses. Now think about it. If one horse runs in a direction but the others are not moving, is that carriage going to move? No. And if all the horses run in different directions, there will only be chaos. In order to move the chariot, in order to move the carriage, the reins of those horses needs to be in the hands of the charioteer. Just like that, if our senses are moving in all different directions, then there will be chaos in our lives. But if we integrate these senses, if we let the reins of these senses be in control of our mind, then life will be fruitful. The mind is considered the 6th sense. So until the 5 senses are integrated, the mind cannot be present. For example, while you're eating, you're listening to music and scrolling through your feed. Your eyes are engaged in looking at your phone. Your ears are listening to some music. Your mouth is tasting this food. None of the senses are integrated. So your mind is not present in that moment. As the senses start to disintegrate, they start to disconnect from the mind as well. There will be instances where you're having a conversation with someone, and at the end of the conversation, you ask yourself, what is it that they just told me? Or you've gotten through 50 pages of a book but still not understood what it is that you have read. These experiences are becoming more and more ingrained in our lifestyles. And over time, over constant practice of experiences like this, it gives rise to mental health problems and eventually leading to mental illnesses. In a classroom, a history teacher teaches his children with passion. And there was a visiting student who told the teacher after class, I love the way you teach. The way you explain history is not boring at all. All of your children must be doing really well in class. They all seem like they were paying such great attention to you. The teacher says, it is not necessarily so. But the student insists, I watched them today. They were all staring at you. They were all like mesmerized by what you were teaching them. You made the topic so interesting that no one could take their eyes off of you. Surely they're paying utmost attention. The teacher said, wait till tomorrow and then decide. The next day, the teacher gave a surprise test on the topic he taught the day before. And some students did absolutely amazing, 100%. But then there were those students who failed the test. Now the visiting student was surprised. He said, how can this be? I watched every single student yesterday and they were all focused on you. So the teacher said, yes, they're looking at me, but their mind is engaged in something else. Their mind is thinking about something else. That is why on the outside it seems like they're focused, it seems like they're paying attention, but internally only they know where their mind is. And this experience does not only happen in a classroom, but happens in our everyday lives, in the activities we are engaged in the conversations we are engaged in. We are so disconnected. There is no synchronization between our senses and our mind. Our senses itself are disintegrated. So in order to be present, first our senses need to be integrated, and then the connection with the mind needs to be there in order for us to be present in a moment. We fill our stillness and silence with movement, sound, activity. We spend each waking moment of ours doing something, not realizing that at the core we are that stillness, we are that silence. Jesus talks about the parable of the sower, where some seeds fall on rocky ground, some land into the thorns, and some get good soil. The rocky ground are those individuals that constantly think about the future, who feel that one day we will be happy, one day when I have a car, one day when I own a mansion, one day when I find the perfect love, not realizing that that one day does not come. The seeds that land into the thorns are those individuals that live in the past, that are constantly thinking about things that happened to them in the past, that they're not able to enjoy the present. They're not able to think about the future. Because if you constantly look back, it's hard to look forward. But it is those individuals, those seeds that fall in good soil, represent those individuals that recognize the word, meaning those that live in the present moment. In the Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2, verse 48 says, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, meaning establish yourself in the present moment and then perform your action. When we settle into the present moment, when we slow down a little bit, it helps us relax, become calmer. And when we dive a little deeper into that, we start to hear the whispers of the divine. That voice of God that always exists within us, but cannot be heard because of all the other noise within us. As we hear the whispers of the divine, we tap into that pure potential. Then our thoughts, our words, our actions are magnificent, full of possibilities. Brothers and sisters, this present moment is available to you all the time. It is constantly with you. You can tune into it whenever you want, wherever you want. But yes, being present takes practice, commitment, and intention. The Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh says, recognize bells of mindfulness. He says, for example, when you meet a red light, you can get frustrated that this red light is preventing you from getting to your destination sooner. Or you can think of it as a bell of mindfulness and use it to remind you to get into the present moment. There are so many simple tools, simple things that you can do, but find your own rituals. Maybe it is taking a few breaths before you have a conversation so that you're present in that conversation. Maybe it is reciting a mantra. Find your own ritual. But start small. Make a commitment to be present. And practice it with intention. For example, start with a few things. Start with the meals you eat. Ensure that you engage all of your senses while you are consuming this meal. You're seeing your food, you're smelling your food, you're hearing yourself chew, you're tasting it, chewing it, you're touching your food with your hands. When all the senses are integrated, the mind would automatically be present to enjoy this experience. Maybe once you've done that for a few days, extend it to the conversations you're having. Think of your attention as a light bulb within your mind. And whatever activity you're doing, If you're having a conversation with someone, give them your light bulb before you start this conversation. If you're reading a book, give the book your light bulb so that your entire focus, your entire attention is in this book. If you're watching TV, give the television, give that movie your light bulb. We all know how to be present. We have done it. But the need is for us to practice it with commitment and intention. To practice it to such an extent so that it becomes our way of life. Because when we learn to live in the present moment, life will become a present. On that note, we'll conclude today's discourse. The month of May is Mental Health Month. So make sure you're following us on our social media handles to receive daily tips, information, tools, and techniques that you can put in your toolbox that will help you strengthen your mental health, that will enable you to be more present. Till next time, God bless.